Good morning, Grace. My name is Mrs. Dunn, and I teach fourth grade girls for Grace Kids. You are about to watch a video of my daughter Jocelyn and my son Israel performing a skit. And while you watch the video, I want you to think of one word that describes what Jocelyn should have done. So you're going to be filling in the sentence, Jocelyn should have blanked her mother. Okay, let's watch the video.
Hey, Israel, remember last week when Mom gave us money to buy Dad a gift from the school holiday shop? Well, I bought these cool Beyblades instead. Look, aren't they awesome? Oh, Mom told you to spend all the money on Dad's gift. Shh, don't be a big tattletale, Israel. I still have $1 left. I can still get Dad something. I don't think $1 is gonna cut it. It's not gonna get Dad a good gift. Mom!
All right, boys and girls, I want you to tell me that one word that might fill in the blank. What should Jocelyn have done? Jocelyn should have blanked her mother. Shout out some words. Obeyed. Oh, you're good. Give yourselves a pat on the back. That's right. Jocelyn should have obeyed her mother, but instead she did what she wanted to do and not what her mom told her to do. And that's a lot like what's going to happen in the story that I'm going to share with you today. So our Bible lesson comes from 1 Samuel chapters 13 and 15. So last week we learned that the Israelites rejected God as their king, and instead they wanted a king of their own. And because of that, Samuel the priest anointed King Saul to be the king of Israel. Now, King Saul's son, Jonathan, took some men to destroy a Philistine army camp. Now, the Philistines were huge enemies of the Israelites, so they were not happy. And they came back for the Israelites, and they came with more chariots and more horses and more soldiers, and so much so that the Israelites were really afraid. So many of them ran and hid in caves. So you can imagine that King Saul was afraid too. So he had this idea that he was going to create a sacrifice, an offering for God to ask for God's help. But everybody knew that that was against the law of God because only the priests were allowed to make sacrifices to God. Well, Samuel the priest wasn't there, and King Saul got tired of waiting for him, so he did it anyway. So here comes the priest Samuel, and he sees what's happening, and he asks King Saul, "What are you doing? You know this is breaking God's laws." Well, God told Samuel that this meant that King Saul was not going to be a king for long. And Samuel relayed that information to King Saul. Well, sometime later, Samuel came to Saul with a message from God. God wanted Saul to attack the Amalekites. God said that Saul was supposed to kill all of the Amalekites and their animals. Well, King Saul went and fought against the Amalekites, and he won with the Israelites, but he did not obey. Instead of killing all of the animals, he decided to kill the ones that were worthless, and he took the more valuable ones and the more valuable possessions back for himself. Well, God sees everything we do. And God saw how King Saul did not obey his laws, and he told Samuel that he was sorry that he had allowed Saul to be the king of Israel. Well, Samuel went and shared this information with King Saul and told him that his kingship was about to come to an end. And of course, King Saul tried to defend himself. He said, "Well, I was going to use the valuable animals as a sacrifice to God. That's why I took them." And the priest Samuel said to him, "To obey is better than sacrifice. And so King Saul finally admitted his sin, and he begged for forgiveness, but the priest Samuel left and never returned to help King Saul. And God was sorry that he had permitted King Saul to become king. Boys and girls, King Saul sinned when he chose to do what he wanted to do instead of what God wanted him to do. Just like in the video, King Saul should have obeyed God. Remember that God knows everything. He knows what is best for us, and he knows our future. God has a purpose for each of us, and he has a reason for giving us the directions that he gives us. So it's really important that we obey. When we obey God's laws, we are at peace and we are our very best. So now it is time to learn our memory verse for this week. So I'm going to ask my daughter Jocelyn and my son Israel to come on out. And they're going to help with the sign language. Right over here, babe. All right. So our verse for today is Psalm 19:11, and it is, we're going to do it quickly one time, and then we're going to slow down so you guys can learn it, okay? Ready? You ready? Moreover, by them is your servant warned, and in keeping them there is great reward. So basically, this verse is telling us how important it is to follow God's laws. And if we do, we'll be rewarded. So the first part is law. So just like in previous weeks, make an L with one hand. Put your paper up because we're going to put our laws, our rules. So moreover by them, that means the laws, is your servant warned. And in keeping, we're going to make two Ks. We're going to put our Ks on top of each other and bring them in. And in keeping them, there is great. And then reward is two Ys. And we put them together. And that means gift, reward. All right, let's do it all together, okay? All right, come on, kids. Moreover, by them is your servant warned. And in keeping them, there is great reward. Great job. Thank you.